All right, guys, so we're going to talk about pen and ink shading. Okay, so this should be a review from last year, but we are going to talk about a new technique that we're bringing in this year. So as far as the tools, all right, you guys have some combination of something like this. Some of you guys might have some Techliner pens. Others have these Micron pens. Most everybody has some sort of just regular Bic pen. Some people have these lay pens, okay? It really doesn't matter what kind of pen you use for this, as long as you use the same kind throughout, okay? You don't want to switch types of pens in the middle of a project because every pen is going to have a different color black, okay? Not every black is going to be the same. If you have a Techliner or a Micron, they come in different sizes. So when you look at something like this is an 005, okay? They go all the way up to an 08, and 005 is very small, all right, like almost like needle type tip to it. I don't know how well you can see that, all right, but it's gonna give you a really fine line. The lay pens only come in one size, all right? They're about the equivalent of an 03, okay? If I put it against my finger, nope, that's worse. All right. And then obviously, you know, a regular Bic pen is, we all know the size of a Bic pen. I would stay away from Sharpies for this because they tend to bleed a little bit and they're a little hard to control. Whenever I'm doing any pen and ink, which is my main medium for me personally, I'm using a Micron and usually an 005 for everything, regardless of what it is I'm doing. Okay. So, as far as the techniques go, all right, so we've got hatching, all right, we've got cross hatching, stipple, and new is scribble. Okay, so those are the techniques we're going to talk about. So, when we're talking about hatching, okay, hatching is just going to be a series of lines all working with one contour of an object, okay? When you're talking about whether it's hatching or cross hatching, mostly, you need to figure out what are the contours you're going to be working with. So if we're going to be shading a sphere, okay, then, and let's say the light source is coming from here, there are two different contours. If you think of it like a globe with longitude and latitude. So if we kind of start with where the light's going to hit and work our way rounded like this, okay, and then we go the other way with it and we work with the sides of this. All right, those would be the contours that we're dealing with. Okay, if we were doing something like a cylinder, all right, it's a little easier to see the contours with this because it's going to be this curve, all right, and that curve are going to give us this contour, all right, this curved contour, and then the sides are going to give us the vertical contour, all right. When you're doing hatching, you need to decide what is the more dominant contour, okay? When we talk about dominant contours, which one of those contours is guaranteed to show us the depth of that form, okay? If we're talking about a cylinder, all right, it would definitely be this curved contour, right? That's the only contour that's going to show us that this object is curved. If we work vertically, it's not going to necessarily show us that it's curved. Okay, so when we're doing hatching, all right, we're going to use a series of lines that all work with that contour. All right, and I'll do it fairly quickly for you. All right, but the way that I'm teaching you guys to do hatching is a little bit different than what you may have learned in the past. It's definitely different than what you're going to learn in a book. Okay. We don't want this to be rigid. We don't want there to be like a harsh line in between these values. So we're going to vary depending on the light, right? We're going to vary the length of these lines. And as we do the next value, we're going to come back to that same starting point. And we're just going to get longer. All right, that's what's going to allow us that transition from one to the other. So our lines get lesser in number, right? And they get longer. And we can also start pulling up at the end as we finish our line to get that lighter, okay? So we get a smoother transition. The alternate for that would be that we do like that, then that, then that, then that, and you can hopefully see there's clear dividing lines between those values. Okay, we don't want that. We want there to be a more smoother transition. All right, if I'm doing a sphere, all right, my argument would be that these lines that are working up towards the vanishing point, or I'm sorry, towards the light source, would be the dominant contour. So I would work those. All right, I'd work up with that. Then as I come here and I get right across from that light source, it's important that I slowly make this transition to the other direction. All right, and all I'm really doing is I'm doing mini lines that work with these same long lines. All right, and again, as I come up, I come back, I start all the way back here, and I work my way up. I transition. All right, my line's getting longer. There's less of them. They're getting lighter, and by starting back at the same point, not only am I helping the transition of value, but my dark is naturally getting darker as I go. Everything's getting darker, right, at the same rate. I don't have to worry about, well, I made this too dark or I made this too light. Okay, I just keep going like that. All right, so that's hatching. All right, if I'm doing cross hatching, I'm going to work both contours. Okay, so if I go back to the cylinder, I'm going to work. Now I can work, and the way I do cross hatching is I'll do a full hatching, okay, and then I'll go back and add the other one. Okay, now this is the way I like to think of cross hatching. Again, a lot of people are going to tell you it's this rigid where you just gradually open more space. Okay, what I like to do is I like to think of it like it's a net, like it's a fishing net. All right, and that net, all right, is really tight. And then that net starts to get frayed. All right, and as I'm coming out to these lighter values, that net is just getting frayed. Okay, so it's a lot looser than doing something like this. I would not recommend this. Okay, this is going to give you a much more loose image. All right, it's going to look a lot more natural when you do it that way. All right, so as I'm coming out here, all right, towards that lighter area, I'm just going to break that net up, and I'll have partial lines and partial strokes. Okay, all right, and I'll do the same thing with the sphere. All right, I'm going to work this contour. I'm going to gradually work my way around. And this would obviously all have to be finished and dealt with. All right, but okay, working with something like that. All right, if I'm working on the top of the cylinder, I don't want to forget that that's got a different contour. All right, because it's a flat surface, so I can work a little looser, a little flatter with that. Okay, obviously don't forget about your shadows. Okay, your shadow's going to go opposite of your light source. All right, if I'm cross hatching the object, I want to cross hatch the shadow. All right, just blend that out. And the shadow, the lines that make up the shadow are going to depend on the angle of that surface. Okay. When we talk about scribble, okay, and I'm going to go over to the value scale for this. So what you guys are going to do is you're going to do a full hatching value scale, cross hatching, stipple, all right, which we should also remember stipple, and then scribble. Scribble is just what it sounds like, okay? Scribble is you're scribbling. All right, and all these techniques are on the same premise, all right? They're the same premise of proximity, right? The closer my lines are, the darker my value is. The lighter my lines are, or the further apart my lines are, the lighter my lines are. Okay, so scribble will be something like this. You'll notice that I didn't do a box and then a box and a box and a box. I'm just transitioning through them. So when I come here and do, and I won't do the whole thing, but when I come here and do hatching, all right, I'm going to treat it the same way I did the sphere or the cylinder. All right, I'm going to start back here and I'm going to keep transitioning into each box so I get that transition. All right, I don't want to be able to see that's a different value. I want to see them grading into each other. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to do the hand. Okay, now one of the things that is helpful with this, okay, I know you guys shaded hands last year in graphite, okay, so it's the same basic idea. Obviously we're using different techniques, but one of the things that is helpful is if you can figure out the contours of each part of the hand. Okay, so if I take like just this part of this section here, all right, I can lightly in pencil draw what's called a cross contour drawing. That's going to show me what my contours actually are, okay? And I do that by looking at what's here, right? So if I look at this edge, this is going to tell me, right, that this is going to come in, right, this edge, right? So they're going to converge like that. These lines in the knuckles, all right, are telling me, right, that this curves this way. All right, whereas the line in the nail tells me that this one curves this way, and this is getting further away from me. All right, so again, if I move to this finger, all right, and come down, then I start to converge, come down, start to converge, come down, converge the other way, come down, converge the other way, go off these lines to tell me how this curves, go off this line to tell me how this curves, okay? When I look at something like this big fat part of the muscle, all right, I use the side line to tell me how this is going, okay? And I can look at my own hand and see that, like, you know, this is going to go in and then come out again, and this is going to go in and then come out and go in and go out as that skin folds, okay? This here, all right, even though this is this muscle, it's going to affect what's happening over here, all right? Now this is a little bit harder because there's not much to go off, but this line here is going to tell me that this muscle curves like this, right? And then as I look at what's happening up here, I can see that this is going to start curving out. So this becomes almost spherical, right? And how it starts coming together, and then I know that it starts to dip down. That muscle starts to dip down into the center of the hand. So when I have something like that, right, now I know what the contours are. So if I'm going to do this in hatching, all right, then I know, okay, I'm going to do it with the dominant contour. Almost forgot where my light source was there for a second, but we're okay. All right, if I'm going to do it with cross hatching, then I start to work that other one in. Obviously I have to deal with the nail being a little bit different, but I can create that curve. Create that broken net. All right, and then get back in there and identify where those creases and stuff are, okay? If I'm going to do this part of the hand, all right, I can look at the fact that it's coming out of that muscle, right? Working with the contour. Right, obviously take into account where the light is going to get blocked by the other fingers, where darks are going to just happen, all right, because of shadows from the other fingers and stuff like that. All right, and I start to make that thing look round, okay? If I'm doing scribble, all right, then same basic idea. I just don't have to worry about the contours quite as much. I still have to worry about them, right? I have to worry about that this curves this way and this curves this way as I lay those darks in. All right, but I don't have to be real stringent with it. All right, if you're somebody who likes the look of stipple but lacks the patience to do stipple, like myself, right? I love how stipple looks, but I'm just not patient enough to sit there and do a whole stipple drawing. All right, then you're gonna like scribble. All right, because scribble, it seems like it would give you a really rough look. All right, but really it gives you a much softer texture than, say, cross hatching. All right, much like stipple does, but it doesn't take the time that stipple takes. Okay, if you're gonna do, you know, a picture of something that's really soft, like a small child's face or something like that, scribble or stipple is probably the way you want to go, because cross hatching and hatching are naturally going to make things look rougher. Okay, nobody wants to sit here and watch me do the whole stipple thing, but just to give you a real quick review, right? As you're doing it, right, it's just a series of dots, not slashes. We're not doing this. All right, dots. All right, and those dots, just like everything else, there's less space between them as you're doing it. All right, if you're doing this and you can hear, then you're doing something wrong. The thing you're doing wrong is you're breaking your pen. You're just going to take that little tiny nib that you have and you're going to force it up. All right, So stipple takes way longer than the other techniques, but it does create a really soft, really beautiful transition when it's all said and done. Okay, so again, this should all be reviewed from last year. All right, what you guys are doing today is you're going to do this value scale. All right, I don't care about it being completely filled in. I care about you being able to show me through those boxes that you can create a smooth transition of value. Then you're going to choose one or two of the techniques, and you're going to shade this hand based on this light source. Okay, then this is going to carry over into what we're actually going to do for the project. Okay, if you need to do basic forms, all right, to warm yourself up, by all means use the back of this page, all right, and do basic forms, all right, and you can give me all that stuff to show me what you're actually capable of. Okay, that's pretty much it. All right, have a good one. See ya.